In the midst of a grand hall, Crown Prince Kane makes a stunning declaration, calling out to Lady Anneliese Baden. With Sarasa Kagami at his side, he announces that he has discovered true love with her, and furthermore, that she is carrying his child. Anneliese stands frozen, her hand flying to her chest in disbelief. The words echo in her mind as she questions what she just heard. Before she can fully process it, the prince's voice booms once more, declaring their engagement is officially annulled. He continues his public condemnation from across the room, his voice filled with accusation. He claims Anneliese was jealous of Sarasa being by his side, alleging that she harassed the girl by scolding her harshly and even tearing her uniform. She remains speechless, her mind reeling as she tries to understand what is happening. Around her, the other nobles begin to whisper, wondering aloud if the accusations against the great Lady Anneliese could be true, given how definitively the prince spoke. The focus shifts to Sarasa Kagami, who appears timid and frightened. It is explained that she is an invited one, a person who came to this country as a traveler from another world. Because these individuals are so rare, it is customary for them to be revered as saints or holy beings. When an invited one moves between worlds, they are sometimes granted a special power. In Sarasa's case, it is said that she possesses the ability to use magic to heal people. A memory surfaces in Annaliese's mind of a past conversation. She had gently advised Sarasa, telling her that she must not be so overly familiar with gentlemen who are already engaged, noting how she was always glued to the prince. The memory continues, revealing more of the truth. Anneliese recalls listening to the grievances of other female students whose fiancés Sarasa had flirted with. It was those students who tore Sarasa's uniform. Anneliese had advised them against such extremes and even gifted Sarasa a new uniform so she would not be troubled. Another fragment of memory shows the incident differently. Sarasa simply fell on her own as they were passing each other. Anneliese had cried out in shock, not malice. Pulled back to the present, Anneliese tries to plead with the prince, but her voice is lost. Her eyes widen in horror as she recognizes the men standing with him. The sons of the high priest and the earl, the knight commander's son, her own teacher. They're the very men Sarasa had been involved with. A cold realization washes over her. Everyone is on their side. She stood frozen, realizing that if she continued to argue, they would not listen to a single word she said. A brief glimpse of Sarasa Kagami revealed a triumphant, cruel smirk, a stark contrast to her usual innocent facade. Steeling herself, she addressed Crown Prince Kane, noting that Her Majesty the Queen was currently absent from the country. Beside them, Lord Elias watched her intently before posing a question to the prince. Was this to be considered a final decision? His question hung in a tense air. His gaze remained fixed on the prince, but his concern was clearly for Anneliese, who met the silence with a growing sense of dread. Crown Prince Kane answered with unwavering arrogance. Yes, it is a final decision, he declared, asserting that with the queen and prince consort away, the discretion of the state had been entrusted to him. His words were a final, crushing blow. She had his word on the matter of their engagement, but now, her thoughts trailed off as the reality of his betrayal settled in. Her face shadowed with disbelief. Her mind drifted back through the years. She had been designated as Lord Kane's fiancée at the tender age of 6. Even knowing it was a political marriage, she had genuinely wanted to build a good relationship with him. She had believed their relationship was a good one, and had foolishly thought he surely felt the same way. But that belief was now utterly shattered. The return to the present was agonizing. All the effort she had put in felt so foolish. A wave of pain washed over her. She wanted to cry, to run away. She had even thought her feelings were love. But she fought back the tears, clenching her fists. This was not the time for weeping. She had to think. Just as she steeled her resolve, a voice called her name. Lady Anneliese. She looked up, startled, to see Lord Elias, the second prince, kneeling before her on the grand floor. He gently admonished her. You should not bite your lips so hard, he advised, offering a handkerchief. Nor clench your fists so tightly. It would be a tragedy if a scar were left on your beautiful skin. He urged her to hide her tears within the cloth, reminding her that they were in public. Anneliese could only stare, stunned by this unexpected act of kindness. As Anneliese remains on the floor, a man strides purposefully towards her. Recognizing him, she cries out for her father. He kneels, pulling her into a firm, protective embrace. Her father explains that he heard the details of the incident from Lord Elias. Upon learning his precious daughter was in danger, it was only natural that he would rush to her side. Still held by him, Anneliese asks why he isn't at work. She then voices her fear, stating she doesn't believe this will end simply with the annulment. She reveals that the engagement was originally decided personally by Her Majesty the Queen, even though it was Lord Kane who ordered it broken. After listening to her concerns, her father speaks gently, suggesting they go home first to calm down. He assures her they can think about the future after that. Anneliese looks up at him, her expression still fraught with worry. With a soft, reassuring smile, he effortlessly lifts her from the floor and into his arms. While holding Anneliese, her father turns to Lord Elias, explaining that he had called for him as soon as the commotion started, which allowed for his swift arrival. He then addresses Crown Prince Kane directly, stating that as his daughter is not feeling well, they would like to take their leave. Crown Prince Cain watches them with a smug expression. He remarks that while it feels wrong to say something good came of the situation, he supposes this is a silver lining. With a sharp glare, he curtly tells them to excuse themselves. He waves a dismissive hand, telling them to just disappear, reminding them he's been wanting them to get out from the very beginning. As he departs, Annalise's father turns to Lord Elias to express his gratitude for being summoned during his daughter's crisis. Lord Elias watches them go, his expression grim. Lord Baden carries his daughter out of the grand hall, leaving Lord Elias standing alone amidst the glittering emptiness. The second prince clenches his fist, muttering a curse under his breath in pure frustration. Meanwhile, at what appears to be the Baden family estate, a noblewoman stands at the foot of a grand staircase, her hand covering her mouth in shock. She gasps, exclaiming how terrible the news is. She held her daughter close, stroking her hair. "It must have been so painful," she murmured, comforting the distraught Annalise, who could only apologize for the trouble she believed she had caused. As she held her, Lady Baden's tone hardened with contempt for the crown prince. She declared that if he intended such a thing, he should have handled it discreetly rather than making a foolish public spectacle. She dismissed his actions as the height of folly, nothing more than an incompetent child's play to think he could overturn a decision made by the queen. She then revealed the foundation of their family standing. Her husband is the prime minister, and she herself is the younger sister of Her Majesty the Queen. This queen is Her Majesty Alexandra Baumgarten, the pinnacle of the absolute monarchy. Known as the Red Queen, she is a fierce woman who used any means necessary to seize the throne. It is whispered that she herself ordered the mysterious deaths of the previous king and princes. Lady Baden's relationship with her powerful sister is poor. In contrast, her husband, a titled noble without land, had his talent recognized by the queen during their student days. He became a civil official for the nation and rose to become prime minister. The prince's actions are part of a recent trend in the kingdom known as free love. It refers to nobles who already have fiancés, falling for commoners or others, and publicly breaking their engagements. While the involved parties call it true love, the parents of those slighted are left to scramble with apologies and compensation, watching the trend with great bitterness. Lord Baden then speaks, his voice laced with disdain. He states that once Her Majesty returns, something might be done about the banishment, but he has no desire to continue serving as prime minister while babysitting that idiot's son. He turns to Annalise and declares he would rather run away from the country with her. His wife immediately seizes upon the idea, since the royal family declared they did not need their precious, and she proposes that they should all leave together as a family. Annalise stares, stunned by her mother's sudden and drastic suggestion. She questions the decision, but her father simply tells her to wait. With cheerful resolve, her parents begin making immediate plans. Lady Baden announces she will order the servants to begin preparations for the move, while Lord Baden confidently adds that finding a new job will be no issue, as he will reach out to his old friends from the academy. Their swiftness leaves Annalise aghast. She protests, asking how they could decide something so monumental so easily. She points out that her mother is of royal descent and could live comfortably even if she were banished. The weight of their sacrifice crushes her as she realizes they are leaving their home and country all because of her. In response to her daughter's distress, Lady Baden takes her hands gently. She tells Annalise not to underestimate her, stating firmly that her current family is what is most precious to her, far more than a country languishing under her sister Alexandra's thumb. Her husband affirms this, looking at his wife with deep affection. He speaks her name, Alma, and then the names of their children, Elmer and Annalise. He declares that she, his wife, is his one and only partner, cementing their family's unbreakable bond. He pulls his family into a tight embrace, his wife Alma and their 3 children, Annalise, Elmer, and their youngest daughter. He looks upon them with deep affection, declaring that they are all his precious treasures. Annalise, her expression firm and resolute, affirms their decision. She states she has no desire to remain in a country that will one day be ruled by a man who impregnated another woman while he still had a fiancée. Her mother, Alma, takes charge, declaring this a major turning point for their family. She asks Annalise and Elmer to help with the packing, explaining that they must hurry and leave the country before the queen returns from her ritual in 10 days. The children agree with enthusiastic resolve. With their decision made, the family departs, leaving behind the grand, now empty halls of the Baden estate. Later, Annalise collapses onto a bed, utterly exhausted from the day's events. Lying there, she reflects on her own nature. She has always found her own nagging tendencies and the way she acts like an adult looking after others to be annoying. The thought triggers a memory of herself as a small child, sitting up in bed with wide, knowing eyes, a stuffed rabbit by her side. Suddenly, she corrects her own thoughts, realizing these are not just feelings, but her actual memories. An image surfaces of a different life. An ordinary woman in her late 30s, dressed in a business suit in a modern city, buried in her daily work. In that life, she had lived simply, enjoying her hobbies, until she was diagnosed with a sudden, incurable disease. Her body grew weaker until she left that world behind. Now, as young Annalise, she calmly accepts this truth. She muses that she'd read about reincarnation in stories, but never imagined it would happen to her. Reflecting on her current life, she recalls becoming Lord Kane's fiancée a few years after her birth. She was summoned to the castle for strict, queenly education, rarely seeing her family. From her mature perspective, she views Kane as nothing more than a bratty child. This brings her thoughts to the present, the annulment of their engagement. She realizes with growing excitement that she no longer has to study or take lessons. The thought is exhilarating. However, she quickly chastises herself, resolving to forget about Crown Prince Kane. She recalls how she was constantly nagging him, but only because he did nothing but slack off and engage in dangerous activities. With this renewed sense of purpose, she strikes a triumphant pose, fist raised high. Having finally gained her freedom, she declares her new mission, to devote herself entirely to her family. A moment later, however, a wave of exhaustion washes over her, and she considers that perhaps she should relax for a little while first. A stately white carriage, drawn by 2 horses, travels along a wooded path, carrying the Baden family away from the capital. Inside, Lord Balthazar Baden looks upon his sleeping son, Elmer, and remarks to Anneliese that her younger siblings must be exhausted from the long journey. He is right. Both Elmer and young Lily have fallen fast asleep. Anneliese's mother, Alma, expresses her relief that they managed to escape the country safely, while Anneliese reflects that it can't be helped, as her siblings had never been away for so long and were thrilled by the new scenery just days ago. She muses that their escape was made possible by the festival celebrating the Queen's return, which allowed them to pass through the royal capital's gates without drawing any attention, though she finds the lack of security somewhat disappointing. Turning to her father, she expresses her admiration, impressed that he was able to find them a new home in just 10 days. Her mother, however, thinks of the Queen, certain she must be absolutely livid. He reveals their destination is the domain of Duke Albert, a young man who lost both of his parents, the previous sovereigns, at young age. Anneliese's mother notes that to rule a country at such a young age, he must be very talented. Anneliese agrees, recalling that he is a few years older than her and was a very witty person. Her mother then surprises her by pointing out that Anneliese herself is famous, having been granted the title Blue Jewel of Baden by the Queen. Her mother asks if she has met the Duke at a party before. Anneliese, taken aback by the mention of her title, the Blue Jewel of Baden, quietly wonders if her renown is simply because she inherited the blood of her esteemed parents. She recalls the true reason for the title. From a young age, she excelled in academics and languages. In recognition of these achievements, Her Majesty the Queen granted her the title when she was only 6 years old. The reason for this precociousness was a pivotal moment when she was 4 years old. The memories of her previous life suddenly returned, and all the knowledge she had gained in that other world flooded back at once. It was then that she decided to learn everything she could about her current world. In that memory, a younger Balthazar enters her room, calling her name. She recalled how, after regaining her memories, she understood everything with an adult's mind. Her father, Balthazar, resigned from his post, but upon seeing his daughter's sudden intellectual leap, he and his wife were surprised but quickly arranged for a tutor. Anneliese realized that arithmetic was simple, using the same methods as her previous world, and that the local language syntax was identical to English, just with a different vocabulary. With nothing else to do, she spent every spare moment reading, finding that she fortunately did not dislike studying. As time passed, around her 6th year, she was invited to a party hosted by the royal family. There, she presented herself before the Queen. "I am Anneliese, daughter of Balthazar Baden," she announced with a perfect curtsy. The Queen, holding an ornate fan, regarded the young girl with a curious expression. Her Majesty was impressed, noting that performing such an elegant curtsy at her age was remarkable. She commanded Anneliese to raise her head. The Queen then turned to Balthazar, exclaiming that it was magnificent. She was amazed that his daughter was already as fluent in the Delisland language as an adult. Balthazar himself was taken aback, admitting that even he hadn't realized she had progressed so far. Anneliese reflected internally that her efforts to study foreign languages just to pass the time had truly paid off. Her attention was drawn to a young lord who looked quite bored, a fact she found troubling. She noted that none of the Queen's own sons were able to speak the Delisland language. At that moment, the Queen addressed her directly. "My beautiful and wise Blue Jewel of Baden," she began, bestowing a new title upon the shocked girl. "Would you be willing to act as a companion for the young lord?" The Queen's request hung in the air as Anneliese considered the proposition, to become a companion for a young lord from a grand duchy. She wondered if she was truly capable of such a task. Looking back from the present, Anneliese remembered her initial worry. She had feared that any misstep might cause an international incident. However, Lord Albert proved to be such a kind person that her anxieties soon vanished. She recalled that it was the first time she had experienced one of Her Majesty's unreasonable demands, and it was from that day forward that she became known as the Blue Jewel. Her memory of the party after that initial meeting was a wonderful one. Unfortunately, she reflected, that was the only time she and Lord Albert ever met. The flashback ends, returning to the present. Anneliese gazes out the carriage window at a magnificent castle nestled by a lake. Her younger sister, Lily, and brother, Elmer, notice her quiet admiration. Big sister, what is it? Lily asks. What's beautiful? Elmer adds, pulling her from a reverie. Her memory drifts back to a distant party, where her younger brother Elmer excitedly pointed out a magnificent castle crafted from sweets. She and her siblings stared in wide-eyed wonder. The idyllic recollection fades as she gazes out the carriage window, her expression somber as they travel through the countryside. Her father, Balthazar, also looks outside, his attention caught by a long line of common folk. He quietly wonders about the reason for the gathering. The view from the carriage reveals that the line leads to a large church just ahead. It becomes clear that this is a daily distribution of supplies for the poor. Back inside the carriage, Annalise holds her younger brother and laments that there is nothing she can do to help them. Her father turns to her, stating that what she can do will depend on her actions from this point forward. His words strike a chord. Annalise's expression hardens with resolve as she agrees, remembering her mother's past encouragement. A memory of her mother's smiling face and supportive words, "You can do it," and strengthens her determination. Meanwhile, in another part of the estate, nobles discuss the situation. A man named Reinhard expresses surprise that Lord Baden is moving to the country, but Lord Albert seems to be looking forward to it. The conversation reveals that the crown prince broke off his engagement to Annalise, the famed blue jewel of Baden, on his own while the queen was away, and they view the acquisition of such talent as a cause for celebration. He listens intently, his expression thoughtful. The other noble exclaims that he can guarantee Balthazar's excellence, noting that the Queen of Baumgarten recruited him personally, so expectations are indeed high. The scene shifts again, returning to Annalise's childhood memory. As a young girl, she stands before a young Lord Albert and introduces herself. She thanks him for the invitation and apologizes, explaining that her Baumgarten language skills are still poor. He kindly reassures her that her own language is perfectly fine. The young lord smiles warmly, resting his chin on his hand as he gazes at her. Annalise, he begins, come quickly to where my hands can reach you. The Baden family arrives at a magnificent mansion, their new home. As Annalise takes in the grand foyer, her younger siblings, Elmer and Lily, gaze in wonder. Elmer exclaims at the amazing sight, while Lily marvels at how sparkling clean everything is. Elmer dashes forward, his eyes wide with excitement as he spots a grand piano. He shouts with glee, asking if this house is even bigger than their old one. His father, Balthazar, approaches Annalise, explaining that here they will be granted the title of Baron. He mentions that, according to Reinhard, this splendid property happened to be available, which is convenient for his new job as a civil official commuting to the castle. Elsewhere, Alma suggests to Elmer and Lily that they practice the Delisland language for an upcoming tea party. Meanwhile, Annalise explores a room decorated in shades of blue, finding it beautiful. She reflects that while the moss green room at the palace, the color of her ex-fiancé's eyes, was nice, she finds this thoughtful blue decor even better. She introduces her maid, Maria, a capable woman who has served her since childhood. Maria is glad Annalise likes the house, but Annalise's expression grows serious. She questions if this is truly acceptable, as her family's rank is merely a barony, and wonders if Maria would have been better off staying home. Maria quickly dismisses the thought, asking her lady not to say such things. She reaffirms her loyalty, stating that following Annalise is enough for her. She explains that had she stayed, she would have been forced into an undesirable marriage. With a smile, Maria then pivots, suggesting they must now consider Annalise's marriage prospects here. Later, Annalise sits alone by a window, contemplating the many inconveniences of this world. She finds herself frequently wishing for the conveniences that existed in her previous life. As she muses, a calm voice cuts through her thoughts. Lord Elias has appeared, advising her to simply ponder these things once life settles down. He smiles faintly, wondering aloud where they should even begin their discussion. A few days pass. Annalise stretches out languidly on an ornate sofa, letting out a long, drawn-out sigh of boredom. She rests her chin in her hand, thoroughly bored. Having always been busy, she now finds herself with an abundance of free time and no idea what to do with it. Her listlessness does not go unnoticed. Her maid, Maria, suggests that if she is bored, she could play with Lady Alma and Master Elmer. Maria points out that the past few days have shown the clear difference in their stamina, a fact Annalise, looking utterly drained, begs her not to state so bluntly. She concedes that Maria is right. In response, Maria proposes an alternative. Perhaps Annalise could think of something for the children to do besides simply playing. This sparks an idea in Annalise, who realizes she can now start writing. Maria, pleased, notes that she managed to get all the necessary supplies ready in just a day. She explains her new project, something the two of them can do to study while also having fun. Her plan is to base the stories on tales from her previous world, like Cinderella or Momotaro, but adapted into a Western style. With that, she sets to work, pen in hand. A small mistake makes her realize she has to redraw a page, but she has plenty of paper. She muses on the irony that the skills she used to draw fan comics in her previous life would come in handy now. However, she finds it strange that paper, which should be an expensive item used only by a few at this level of civilization, is so common in this world. As she continues her work, she reflects on the peculiarities she has noticed. She concludes that this really is a mysterious world. She throws herself into the project, working diligently at her desk as the light changes from day to night, and then back to day again. Finally, her work is complete. She swings the door open with a bright, triumphant expression, calling out for Alma and Elmer. Hearing her call, her younger siblings, Elmer and Lily, look up from the floor where they were playing. They excitedly call out to their big sister. She smiles warmly, inviting them to come play with her. She proudly presents the special books she made, one for each of her younger siblings. Lily looks at one, identifying it as a book, while Elmer observes quietly. The children then remind her that neither of them can read yet. In response to their concern, she smiles warmly, telling them not to worry. She explains that she wrote them with simple words, and for now, she will read the stories aloud to them. Her siblings' faces light up with excitement. Eagerly, the children urge her to begin reading at once. Annalise agrees, and the three of them settle down together. Her siblings huddled close as she opens the first picture book. Their mother, Alma, watches them, touched by the scene. She notes how incredibly interested the twins are and asks Annalise if she might make more books when she has time. The children, however, are possessive of their new treasures, with Lily demanding her mother return the book she picked up. Annalise gently reminds her to take good care of the book her sister made for her. Meanwhile, in a lavish room that once belonged to Annalise, EXILED surveys her new surroundings. She declares the room hers now, finding it annoying that it belonged to that woman, but accepting it. She immediately plans to redecorate, wanting to replace the dull wallpaper and carpet with pink. Her eyes then fall upon a jewelry box, realizing with glee that its contents are now all hers. Her exploration continues as she discovers a wardrobe full of dresses. She pulls one out, but is immediately frustrated, exclaiming that it won't even fit around her waist. Her shock turns to excitement as she wonders if the wardrobe is a surprise gift from Prince Cain. She then turns her attention back to the jewelry. Admiring a pair of ornate earrings, she swoons at the sight of so many green jewels, noting with delight that they are the same color as Prince Cain's eyes. The thought of his possessiveness thrills her. Lost in her fantasy, she collapses onto the bed, hugging a pillow tightly. She daydreams that her favorite, Prince Cain, is completely head over heels for her, and that just like in the game's harem route, all the other potential suitors are captivated by her as well. Her thoughts then shift to Annalise. She reflects on how, unlike in the game she remembers, Annalise never became jealous or bullied her. Because of this deviation, Sarasa had to stage the conflict herself. A flicker of curiosity crosses her mind as she wonders what actually happened to the villainess. She quickly dismisses the thought, reassuring herself that it doesn't matter. She is confident that since this is the world of the game, where she is the center, things will inevitably end exactly like the harem route ending. With Annalise properly exiled from the country, she smugly concludes that everything is fine. She muses on her next move, anticipating that once the queen returns, Prince Cain will officially announce her as his fiancée. Any lingering guilt is brushed aside. To her, it was all meaningless, a small price to pay for getting to live in what she perceives as a sparkling game world. With a gleeful laugh, she declares that soon the last obstacle will disappear completely, ensuring her own happy ending. Elsewhere, in a richly decorated room, Annalise stands with a composed and serious expression. She turns her head slightly, asking her attendant, Maria, if a specific letter has been sent. The Baden family arrives at a magnificent, sprawling mansion that will serve as their new home. Annalise takes in the sight, quietly remarking on the amazing house, while her younger siblings, Elmer and Lily, gaze in wide-eyed wonder, with Elmer exclaiming that it's sparkling. The children's excitement is palpable as they step inside. Elmer dashes towards a grand piano, shouting with glee that the house is even bigger than their old one. As they settle in, Balthazar Baden is greeted by the head butler, Leonardo, whom he thanks for preparing for their arrival. Balthazar then turns to Annalise, explaining that according to a man named Reinhardt, this beautiful mansion just happened to be vacant. He adds that he has been assigned to work as a civil official and granted the title of Baron, which will make his commute to the palace easier. Nearby, Alma gathers the younger children. She tells Elmer and Lily that they must practice their Delislandian language to properly greet guests at an upcoming tea party. The children agree enthusiastically, already thinking about the sweets they might have. Later, in her new private chambers, Annalise marvels at the lovely room decorated in calm shades of blue. She reflects that at the royal palace, her room was moss green, once her favorite color, but also the color of her former fiancé's eyes. She tells her maid, Maria, that she is happy she came with her, but also worries it might have been better for Maria to have stayed behind. Maria simply smiles, glad her lady likes the room and ready to assist. As Annalise continues to express her concern, Maria gently places a finger on her lips, asking her to say no more. She firmly reminds Annalise of her promise to follow her anywhere. Maria then reveals her practical reason. Had she stayed, she would have been forced to marry a man older than Annalise's own father, chosen only for his money and not his character. Annalise is stunned into silence by this revelation. Seeing her lady's reaction, Maria trails off with a slight blush. Annalise's shock quickly melts into a warm, teasing smile. She declares that if that's the case, they will simply have to seriously consider finding Maria a suitable husband from among their own staff. Her maid, Maria, whispers to Lady Annalise, suggesting she think about marriage after they find a reliable gentleman for her. Annalise laughs, though her mind wanders, pondering the very idea. She lets out a soft sigh, contemplating her future. She had told Maria she wanted to find a marriage partner soon, but now she wonders if she should forget marriage entirely and throw herself into work instead. As she walks toward her chambers, Maria advises her to rest after the long trip. Alone, Annalise sits, reflecting on how this new world is full of inconveniences. She keeps wishing for things she had in her past life. Her thoughts spiral into a new possibility. If she wants to make and sell something, how would she even do it? Could she use her memories from her past life to start a business? The questions linger. Even with money, can a woman in this society truly stand on her own? She decides to set the matter aside for now. It's too much to process at once. She will think about where to even begin once she has calmed down. A few days later, Annalise stretches dramatically on a chaise lounge, exclaiming her boredom. She then slumps back down with a sigh as Maria, quietly, tends to a vase in the background. She reflects on this feeling. In her past life, she was always busy, the type of person who had no idea what to do with free time. Now, faced with it, she is truly and utterly bored. Her thoughts drift to the future. She recalls that her younger siblings' reading and writing lessons start today, and she hopes they enjoy learning. This sparks an idea, a potential solution to her idleness. She calls out for her maid, Maria. Maria appears, and Annalise hands her a list, asking her to prepare the items written on it. When a maid asks what she plans to do with them, Annalise simply puts a finger to her lips with a playful wink, calling it a surprise for later. Maria's efficiency is impressive. She has already gathered all the requested items from the day before. A collection of pigments, adhesive, thread, and brushes are laid out. Now, wearing a practical apron, Annalise declares that she can finally begin drawing. She decides that her secret project will be a picture book, something to make studying more enjoyable for her younger siblings. As she considers her options, she thinks of adapting stories from her past life, like Cinderella or Momotaro, to create something new and engaging for them. The goal is set, a hand-drawn picture book. As she begins to draw, a drop of ink spoils her work, forcing her to start over in frustration. She reflects with some amusement that the drawing skills she honed creating fan comics in her past life are proving unexpectedly handy. Her thoughts then shift to the materials themselves. She has plenty of paper, but she suddenly realizes that for this world's level of civilization, paper should be an expensive luxury. Its common availability is a strange anomaly. At her desk, Annalise works diligently on a new project, her hair tied back and an apron protecting her dress. She pauses for a moment, a bead of sweat on her temple, reflecting on how mysterious this world truly is. She works tirelessly through the night, the room transitioning from the deep darkness of midnight to the bright light of morning, her focus never wavering from the task at hand. Her efforts culminate in a triumphant moment as she presents a finished, hand-bound picture book. "I did it," she exclaims. Her maid, Maria, looks on in astonishment, remarking that she always thought books were just filled with words. Annalise explains with a smile that this one has lovely stories and drawings, created specifically to help her younger siblings, Elmer and Alma, enjoy learning to read. With her creation complete, she peeks through a doorway, cheerfully calling for Alma and Elmer. The two young children, Lily and Elmer, appear from behind a corner, their faces lighting up as they excitedly call out for their big sister. They rush towards her, asking if she wants to play. Maria, watching the scene unfold, understands that this gesture shows just how much Annalise cares for them. Blushing slightly, Annalise asks if they want to see what she made, and the children eagerly agree. She settles down with them, opening the book. Elmer and Lily cuddle close, impatiently urging their big sister to read it to them fast. With a gentle smile, Annalise agrees and begins the story. After reading the entire story, she closes the book, announcing the end. Their mother, Alma Baden, who has been observing, expresses her amazement. She notes that Annalise drew the pictures, wrote the story, and even bound the pages herself. Annalise explains she made it to help the children with their reading and writing lessons. Impressed, Alma asks if she can see the book. She agrees, but her younger siblings have other ideas. Lily excitedly asks for the picture book, while Elmer declares he will read it himself. Annalise smiles, telling them to take good care of the book she made for them. Seeing how fascinated the twins are, Alma asks Annalise to make more when she has free time. The children settle on the floor, completely absorbed in their new treasure. In what was once Annalise's chambers, ISEKAI'D examines a wardrobe filled with opulent dresses. She gasps in frustration, realizing a dark, ornate gown won't fit her waist. Her shock gives way to a flicker of delight as she wonders if the entire collection is a surprise gift from Prince Cain. Her attention then shifts to a jewelry box. Though she initially calls the pieces pretty, she quickly dismisses them as not being to her taste and decides to have everything replaced. Trying on an earring, she smirks, noting that the many green gems remind her of Prince Kane's eyes and finding his obvious possessiveness to be embarrassingly sweet. Tossing the jewelry aside, Sarasa basks in her victory, declaring that everything is exactly as she wanted. This, she feels, is the best possible outcome. She smugly believes it is her right as the heroine of the game concerto for a saint, envisioning herself as the center of attention, surrounded by the game's handsome male suitors. Her confidence swells as she reminds herself that this is the game world, and therefore, it will definitely follow the harem ending she desires. She reflects with satisfaction that she successfully managed to have Annalise exiled, clearing the path for her own triumph. Her thoughts drift to her past life, where she sits on her bed, recalling with bitterness how much she hated her parents. All they ever did, she remembers, was demand that she stop playing games and focus on her studies. A cruel smile spreads across her face as she deems all their nagging to have been pointless. She eagerly anticipates Prince Kane reporting her as his official fiancée upon the Queen's return, securing her new life in this sparkling game world. With a triumphant expression, Sarasa declares her situation a happy ending. She celebrates the fact that the nuisance, Annalise, will now be completely gone from her life. Meanwhile, in another part of the estate, Annalise Baden stands with quiet composure. She turns to her maid and asks, "Oh, right, Maria? Did you send that letter?" Maria confirms that she has, clarifying that it was the letter concerning Prince Kane's gifts. The note Annalise had penned was brutally concise. "I don't need this junk anymore." Annalise touches her chin, explaining her strategy. She predicts they will probably dispose of everything. Not just the room, but the dresses and jewels, too. She is certain there is no way Prince Kane would give his true love items that were once hers. She shared her thoughts with her maid, Maria, who considered the likely reaction of Crown Prince Kane. Maria pictured his smug face, certain that the prince would react exactly as predicted. A moment later, Annalise let out a small laugh, covering her mouth as she revealed she was only kidding. Her jest left Maria momentarily speechless before she sighed in exasperation, murmuring, "Honestly, my lady." Inside the Baden estate, Annalise stretches at her desk, having finished her work. Her maid, Maria, approaches with a cup of tea, commending her efforts and asking if she is drawing another picture book for her younger siblings. Annalise confirms that she is. She explains to Maria that she was worried her siblings would be bored, as they had already read the last book she made. With a confident smile, she expresses her certainty that they will love the new one. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by the sound of loud wailing from elsewhere in the house. The sudden crying startles them both. Recognizing the voices, Annalise immediately gets up, calling out an alarm for her younger siblings. "Alma, Elmer." She rushes to find her mother, Alma Baden, trying to console the two distraught children. Her younger sister, also named Alma, cries out for her. Elmer explains tearfully that their teacher isn't coming, and his sister adds that their mother is also leaving. The elder Alma looks on, asking what has happened. Kneeling to comfort them, Annalise makes a proposition. She will take them out just this once. She makes them promise to hold her hand, not run off suddenly, and not whine for sweets along the way. Her sister gives her a grateful kiss on the cheek as both children's faces light up with excitement. With the promise secured, Annalise stands and cheerfully announces that they are going out. The children cheer with delight. She then turns to her mother, assuring her that it's all right and that Maria will be coming with them. Her mother agrees, entrusting the children to her. As they prepare to depart, her sister Alma asks if she is bringing the new picture book, worried it might get in the way. Annalise reassures her that it's fine as they leave the grand family home. Their destination is a vast, open park. Upon arrival, the children marvel at the wide, green space before them. While the children are captivated by the park, Annalise's gaze drifts over the treetops. She looks towards the distant royal palace, quietly noting to herself how close it is. In the gardens, the maid Maria assures Lady Annalise that she will look after the young master, Elmer, who is excitedly pointing and shouting about something rushing by. As Elmer dashes off, Annalise's mother, Alma, stands nearby with her youngest daughter, also named Alma, who watches her brother go. With Elmer gone, Annalise finally catches her breath, deciding to stay with her younger sister in the quiet, lovely park. She finds a location so peaceful and close to home that she considers bringing a book with her on her next visit, while young Alma promises to watch over her. Her moment of peace is interrupted when young Alma approaches, holding a picture book and asking what kind of dance her older sister is doing. Annalise laughs, amused, as Alma begins to spin in circles, trying to imitate a dance herself. Alma continues her playful spinning, calling for Annalise to watch her. Sensing she might fall, Annalise shouts for her to stop, but it's too late. The little girl loses her balance and tumbles to the ground with a cry. On the ground, her eyes fill with tears. As she begins to cry, a man's leg suddenly appears beside her, and she looks up with a startled gasp. A kind-faced stranger in a cap kneels down, asking if she is hurt. Annalise rushes to her sister's side, apologizing profusely to the man for her inattention. She checks on Alma, who tearfully says it doesn't hurt, and Annalise sighs in relief that the child was only scared. The man gently takes Alma's hand. Annalise observes that he has a slight accent from another country, a fact he confirms with a smile. He then apologizes for interrupting her earlier dance, addressing her directly as princess. Upon hearing the word princess, Alma's eyes sparkle with excitement. She exclaims that the man is just like a prince. Annalise watches, taken aback, as her little sister scampers away a few steps. She returns just as quickly, holding up her picture book to the man. Alma proudly declares that she knows about princes from the book and can even read the word. A flustered Annalise tries to intervene, but the man takes the book. Alma beams, explaining that her big sister drew the book for her and Elmer. The man's expression turns serious as he examines the unique drawings. He looks at Annalise, asking if she truly made it, remarking that he has never seen a book like it before. Annalise quietly confirms that she did. He continues his assessment of her book, noting its gentle words and added pictures make it easy for children to understand. He deduces it probably wasn't intended solely for the children of nobility. With a thoughtful smile, he suggests that if her book could be introduced as part of children's education, they would surely grow to be kinder. Annalise listens, and the same thought echoes in her own mind. In a sunlit park, a man in a vest and glasses hurries along a path, calling out with relief that he has found who he was looking for. He rushes up to a young man in a newsboy cap, chiding him for being late and urging him to hurry to a meeting. Complaining about the noise, the man in the cap agrees to go, as a small, light-haired girl watches. Before leaving, the man in the cap turns to Annalise and her little sister, Lily, thanking them for showing him something so wonderful. He promises that they will meet again someday. With a final apology, he is hurried away by his associate, expressing his hope to see them again. As the two men depart, Annalise suggests to Lily that they should go back and find Elmer and Maria. Elsewhere, at a grand estate, a handsome, dark-haired man in a fine suit arrives, apologizing for his delay. He is greeted by a nobleman who addresses him with deference as Your Excellency, Albert. He is praised by Lord Reinhard for his exceptional abilities, which are clearly a great asset to their country. Nearby, a military official seethes with frustration, declaring the Crown Prince of Baumgarten a pathetic idiot for being so easily manipulated by a strange woman. Duke Albert thoughtfully remarks to Queen Alexandra that he cannot imagine her letting go of someone as capable as Annalise. In another part of the room, a council of nobles agrees that they must now keep a close watch on the kingdom of Baumgarten. The Duke then approaches Lord Baden, mentioning his chance encounter with Annalise and her sister, Alma, in the square. He notes their politeness, even though he hadn't revealed his identity, and asks if they caused any trouble. Lord Baden explains that his daughters are still adjusting to the country. He continues, sharing his surprise when a younger sister showed him a picture book handmade by Lady Annalise herself. When Lord Baden asks if Annalise aims to be a writer, Albert clarifies that she simply wishes to make her siblings happy. Duke Albert recalls the book's refined composition and intelligent wording, noting how its colors and layout were perfectly suited to draw children in. The memory of Annalise and Lily on the bench clearly left a strong, positive impression on him. He sat comfortably on the ornate sofa, his hands clasped before him, and continued his explanation to Lord Baden. The Duke recounted seeing the picture book in the square earlier that day, stating that he immediately felt it could be put to good use. His expression shifted to a confident smile as he addressed the Baron directly, asking if he would be willing to hear his proposal. In the Baden family parlor, Annalise is taken aback by a sudden proposition. Lord Elias explains that when she was at the park, someone noticed the picture book her sister Alma was holding and inquired about making it available to the general public. The idea of mass-producing her work leaves Annalise speechless. He clarifies that this is merely a discussion for now, but insists it would be a waste to keep her creation confined to just their family. He then gestures to another man in the room, who is there to introduce himself. The man introduces himself as Nicol as Edgardo, chairman of the Edgardo Trading Company. He passionately praises Annalise's picture book, explaining that her talent could bring significant change to the nation's education by making learning enjoyable. Flustered, Annalise tries to interrupt, but Nicol barrels on, assuring her not to worry about profits, and that they will even handle copyrights and patents. He then asks if she is willing to sell the book for the sake of the children's education. Annalise hesitates. Internally, she admits that while she is happy to help, she feels guilty taking credit for a story based on memories from her past life. Nicol notices her troubled expression and asks if something is bothering her. Before she can respond, Lord Elias interjects, reminding her that she isn't particularly concerned with money. Annalise agrees, clarifying that she only drew the book for her younger siblings and never intended to make writing her livelihood. He then prompts her to recall the things she wanted to do when she first arrived in this country, asking if she doesn't have some greater ambition. His question catches her off guard. Misreading the moment, Nicol earnestly asks her to consider his proposal so the work can reach those who need it. Overcome with emotion, Nicol proclaims that Annalise must be an angel sent by God and vows to risk his life to make the project as profitable as possible for her. Stunned, Annalise can only thank Angel. She quickly clarifies that she would like to donate her share of the profits to the church, while Nicol becomes so worked up he has to be told to calm down. After composing himself, he apologizes for getting carried away. Lord Elias, hiding a laugh, teases him for being so dramatic, noting that Annalise has now earned the title Angel Sent by God, in addition to the Blue Gem. Nickel then formally asks Lady Annalise if he can consider their agreement with the Edgardo Trading Company finalized. With a confident smile, Annalise agrees, stating that she will leave all the detailed business matters in his hands. They shake hands, sealing the partnership. Nickel thanks her for her support, and she thanks him for his cooperation. However, her relief is short-lived as he begins brainstorming aloud, suggesting promotional taglines like a picture book of love by an angel who is an artist, causing Annalise to immediately panic and tell him not to use such strange phrases. At the Baden estate, Nickel Edgardo presents the completed picture book prototypes to Lady Annalise. He displays two distinct versions, an ornate, dazzling edition for the wealthy, and a simpler, cost-effective one for commoners. Annalise expresses her admiration for his thoroughness, impressed by how he tailored the designs to suit noble tastes while ensuring the other was affordable for the general populace. Her initial praise, however, gives way to a pensive frown. She concedes that selling to commoners will be difficult, as most cannot read or write, and even adults in that class rarely purchase books. As she contemplates the dilemma, a sudden realization dawns on her. She proposes donating the books to churches, explaining that they offer reading and writing lessons several times a week. If the books spread through the churches, it could expand their business opportunities and create a stable income. A confident smile spreads across her face as the plan solidifies in her mind. She declares that they will seek the help of the mothers. To that end, Annalise hosts an elegant tea party. She is seen conversing with Maria and other noble ladies, surrounded by tiered trays of delicate pastries and tea. While strolling through the grounds, one of her guests expresses her gratitude for the invitation, remarking on how beautifully maintained the garden is. Another guest notes that some parts of the garden feel a bit different from the country's typical style. Annalise smiles and explains that she has incorporated elements from the Baumgarten style, a place where she once lived. Her attention is then captured by a charming sight. Her younger siblings, Elmer and Lily, sitting together in the grass, each completely absorbed in a picture book. The noble women beside her remark on how adorable the two children are. The guests' gentle amusement turns to shock. They whisper among themselves, questioning if children so young could actually be reading. Lady Amelia, one of the guests, exclaims that they're the same age as her own child. As Elmer reads a line aloud, the women's disbelief evaporates, replaced by urgent curiosity. They crowd forward, pleading to know where they can acquire such a book, hopeful that their own children might finally be able to read. Before a grand church, Lord Elias recalls a piece of information. He notes that it was Duke Albert who established the church's literacy program. Elsewhere, Annalise Baden comes to a realization. Thinking it best to speak with the Duke before donating, she resolves with sudden determination that she must write him a letter. Meanwhile, Lord Elias is buried under a mountain of paperwork, groaning that the work never seems to end. From the doorway, two of his aides observe his distress. One, a man with glasses, cheekily suggests that if Elias is so overwhelmed, then he should help them with their tasks. The man with glasses continues to tease his dark-haired colleague, accusing him of using the situation as an excuse to get closer to Lady Annalise. He points out that the aide was just praising the young lady recently and directly asks if he is interested in her, causing the other man to react with a flustered huh. Their conversation catches the attention of Lord Elias, who looks up, blushing, and mutters that it's impossible he was praising her picture book. The aide with glasses then casually announces that, by the way, Lady Annalise has sent a letter for his grace. Annoyed, Elias demands to know why he wasn't told sooner, as the aide tells his colleague to stop teasing him. A moment later, he holds the letter, a faint smile gracing his lips as he reads. His aides observe from a distance. The one with glasses remarks that the picture book venture seems to be going well, while the other thinks to himself that Elias should just be honest. Having finished the letter, Lord Elias looks up and declares he will arrange for Lord Baden to come. Annalise arrives with her father, Balthazar, and greets Lord Elias. She explains that she heard he was busy with financial matters and has come to assist. Lord Elias thanks her for coming. When her father mentions the pressure of the work, Annalise confidently states that she uses a convenient tool and is quite good at it, though it may be presumptuous to say. Lord Elias, who summoned her precisely because he'd heard of her arithmetic skills, listens intently. A few days later, having showcased her impressive grasp of arithmetic with an abacus, Annalise is assigned to help Lord Elias process his documents. She sits at a desk in his office, diligently working through the stacks of paper. As she continues her work, a look of grave concern crosses her face. She pauses, quill hovering over the paper, as a single, troubling thought forms in her mind. This is bad. An official presents a document to Lady Annalise, asking for her review. On it, the number 3 million is written as a long string of zeros. He explains that numbers written this way are difficult to read and can lead to budget issues. She agrees and holds up a stack of other papers, noting that not all of them require his direct review. Instead, she proposes a simple solution, adding a mark after every 3 digits. This, she explains, makes even huge sums clear at a glance, preventing confusion. The official readily agrees with her logic. Building on her idea, Annalise suggests further improvements to their workflow. She proposes sorting documents by their destination, one pile for the Minister of Education, another for military affairs, and placing the sender's name at the top of each document to save time. Her suggestions are overheard by Lord Elias, who is immediately impressed. He declares her idea brilliant and announces that it will be adopted as official policy. Flustered by the sudden praise and decision, Annalise apologizes, feeling she was being too presumptuous, while the other official looks on in stunned silence. He gently asks why she's apologizing. As he sits thoughtfully, Annalise internally laments the lack of calculators before catching herself. Noticing her pensive state, Elias encourages her to speak, stating that any idea of hers is worth hearing. Her thoughts then drift to a more rudimentary tool, an abacus. Their discussion is interrupted by Crown Prince Cain, who approaches Annalise with disdain. He tells her that if she has time for such pointless thoughts, she should be doing his paperwork instead, questioning why he would ever use something so weird. His hostile gaze meets the sharp, watchful eyes of Lord Elias. In the tense silence following Cain's remark, Annalise's hand clenches into a tight fist as she thinks of Lord Albert. From his desk, Lord Elias observes her subtle reaction with keen interest. Ignoring the prince, she turns back to Elias and the official, posing a new question. Is it possible to automate the functions of an abacus? Intrigued, Elias encourages her to continue, pondering the implications of her words. The official with glasses, flustered, apologizes for getting carried away. Annalise quickly reassures him that it's fine and urges him to continue their earlier discussion. She continues explaining her idea to Lord Elias, suggesting they could call a mage and use magic stones for the materials. He notices her cheerful expression and asks what's wrong. Smiling brightly, Annalise replies that she feels anything is possible as long as she is by his side. In a room lined with books, Lord Elias suddenly reaches out and firmly grasps Annalise's wrist, halting her. They stand close, his gaze intense as he looks down at her. He leans in closer, his voice low as he warns her not to speak so carelessly. He explains that someone might misunderstand and want to make her their own, someone he implies like him. Elsewhere, the man with glasses reports to Lord Elias, who is now seated at his desk. The man remarks that the rumors are true. Lady Annalise is indeed a brilliant young lady. Across the desk, Lord Elias lets out a soft sigh, appearing deep in thought. The man continues, gesturing to a document on the desk. He found her ideas honestly eye-opening, noting how even small, accumulated suggestions can make administration much more efficient. He concludes that if these ideas take root, they could set the entire country's administration on a new path. He looks toward Lord Elias, who remains silent and contemplative. Seeing his lord's expression, the man quickly affirms, "Yes, you're right," as if responding to an unspoken comment. Meanwhile, Crown Prince Cain sits alone, his hand resting on his chin. He reflects that his judgment of Annalise was not wrong. An image of her smiling fills his mind as he thinks of her as wise, kind, and beautiful, just as she was when he first loved her. He makes a firm resolution. This time, he will make her his. Later, Annalise stands before her father, Balthazar Baden. She apologizes with a small smile, admitting she got a little carried away. Her father looks at her kindly and asks about her meeting with Lord Albert. In response, she explains that Lord Albert listened to her seriously, which made her very happy. She then becomes flustered, quickly clarifying that it wasn't in any strange way. Her father simply chuckles, letting her know he understands. She stands alone by a window, clutching her own wrist where Lord Elias had held it. Her expression is somber as she quietly reflects that is all there is to it, her thoughts turning inward. On a sunlit stone terrace overlooking the vast estate, Lady Annalise stood holding a folder, her expression thoughtful as she gazed into the distance. She was approached by Lord Elias, who asked if he might walk with her. Annalise agreed, remarking that while the sun was still strong, it was cooler than before. He began by praising her, stating that her ideas were making a significant impact and affirming that knowledge is power. Annalise modestly dismissed the compliment, saying it was nothing special, a response Elias noted she gave often. Her humility reminded him of a conversation with her father, Balthazar Baden. Elias recalled how the prime minister had firmly refused a title, believing it would only bring more trouble. Reflecting on this, Elias smiled to himself, thinking it a wise decision. Annalise, however, had her own plans for the fruits of her labor. With a cheerful declaration, she announced her intention to donate her portion to the church, a recurring habit that made Elias sigh in weary recognition and was sure to make the church accountants weep. Returning to a more serious topic, Elias passionately explained his philosophy. He agreed with Annalise's idea of providing steady support to help the poor feel secure, but he stressed that it was only a first step. Clenching his fist, he asserted that people cannot grow if they become dependent. They must work to build their own futures. His ultimate goal, he declared, was to build a country where people could hold on to hope. Following his fervent declaration, he stood in profile, his gaze fixed forward with unwavering determination. As they continued their walk, Annalise watched him, a soft smile on her face. She reflected internally that he was, truly, a wonderful person. Within a lavishly appointed room, Sarasa Kagami smiles with satisfaction. She takes in her new surroundings, deciding the decor is boring and that she will change the wallpaper and carpet to pink. Her eyes fall upon a jewelry box and other fine items, and she gleefully claims them all as her own, dismissing them as mere hand-me-downs from Annalise. Meanwhile, a carriage arrives at the palace, heralding the return of Queen Alexandra. In the main hall, Crown Prince Cain stands beside Sarasa, while Lord Elias watches from a distance with a look of deep concern. A shadow of profound distress crosses Annalise's face as she processes the unfolding events. Seated upon her throne, the queen's expression hardens as she demands to know what is going on. Her sharp gaze takes in scene. In another part of the palace, King confronts Sarasa, asking who she is and why she is present instead of Annalise. The young woman simply introduces herself as Sarasa Kagami. His reaction is immediate and joyous. As Lord Elias looks on with quiet alarm, Prince Cain throws an arm around Sarasa, proclaiming to all that they have found true love. The words reach Annalise, whose face registers shock and disbelief as she silently questions the meaning of his declaration. He later reports this to Queen Alexandra, remarking with satisfaction that Annalise was calmer than he'd anticipated, confirming his own judgment. The queen, however, is unmoved. She retorts that it is surprising to hear a royal has forgotten his duty and become drunk on love, before pointedly asking for Annalise's whereabouts. Cain's casual reply that he ordered her exiled leaves the queen aghast. With whose permission, she demands, her voice sharp. She reminds him that exile is the gravest punishment, one that can only be issued by a royal decree from the monarch, not decided on a whim by a mere subject. He tries to justify himself, showing a note where Annalise allegedly wrote that she didn't need his junk anymore. In a separate conversation, Annalise's maid, Maria, confirms to her lady that she is indeed referring to the gifts Prince Cain had given her. Annalise calmly explains her logic to Maria. She anticipates that everything of hers, the room, dresses, and jewels, will be disposed of. She is certain that the prince would never insult his true love by giving her second-hand items. Her maid, however, teases her with a playful smile, suggesting the prince would absolutely do such a thing. Annalise is momentarily speechless, while a nearby Lord Elias hides a chuckle. Maria then assures her she is only kidding. Back in the throne room, the queen's fury finally boils over. She seizes Cain by his collar, berating him for issuing an order in the crown prince's name without understanding the gravity of a royal decree. Her voice echoes as she roars, demanding to know who authorized Annalise's departure. Her fury unabated, a court official approaches, explaining that a sealed letter, addressed to Her Majesty, was discovered at the Baden residence. Read it out loud, she commands, her voice sharp. The official unrolls the scroll and begins. The letter, from House Baden, declares the annulment of their daughter's engagement, an engagement in which she bore no fault, and the subsequent order for their expulsion from the country as utterly unacceptable. It continues, stating that in light of these events, the family has decided to return to their homeland. A final message of gratitude is offered for the kindness shown to them, concluding with a formal wish for the continued prosperity of the nation and its lands. Within the royal court, a hand clenches, violently crumpling a document. A furious voice rings out, declaring that Balthazar has finally gone too far. Her rage is palpable. Queen Alexandra, her face a mask of fury, touches one of her earrings as she bellows in order to find the Baden family immediately. A guard swiftly affirms the command. As the court flinches in fear, a man with long, light hair places a steadying hand on the queen's shoulder, urging her to calm down. He then addresses the court, stating that the mistake was not made by their child alone. Below them, Crown Prince Cain and Sarasa Kagami stare in stunned silence. The queen turns her sharp gaze upon her son, a menacing smile playing on her lips as she finds his defiance interesting. Uncowed, Prince Cain shouts back, questioning how she dares speak to him so. He is cut off by his mother's sharp command to be silent. Her eyes narrow with suspicion as she asks what he is hiding. The prince flinches, realizing his position is becoming precarious. The queen's suspicion hones in on a specific possibility, questioning if there's a child involved, and if this occurred before the wedding. Stepping forward, Sarasa Kagami places a hand on her stomach and declares that she is, in fact, carrying Prince Cain's child. The declaration sends a shockwave through the court. A nobleman speaks up, reminding Her Majesty with all due respect that the crown prince's bride must be pure. The queen's fury returns as she grips the hem of her gown, snapping that she knows that perfectly well. Her face cast in shadow, she calls them all idiots, demanding to know how many more blunders must be made. As she lunges, the king, Edward, holds her back, pleading for her to stop. He suggests they adjourn to sort out the facts first. Though still seething, the queen's demeanor shifts to one of cold resolve. She states that she must bring her back, revealing that she personally discovered the girl's talents. Leaving Annalise overseas, she declares, is absolutely unacceptable. A memory from childhood surfaces for Lord Elias. He recalls a moment by a window, his hand near a vase of flowers, the image hazy with time. Within that memory, his younger sister, Lily, calls out to Annalise. Annalise watches her own mother, who is sister to the queen, walk away, having been summoned to the palace once again. In a happier moment from that time, A young prince, Elias, greets the sisters. Lily proudly shows Annalise a flower crown she made. Delighted, Annalise accepts the gift, and Lily gently places it upon her head. Watching them, the young prince Elias's expression turns thoughtful. He brings a single daisy to his lips, quietly contemplating the scene. The memory fades, leaving the adult Lord Elias standing alone in a grand room. He gazes out the window, the past echoing as he softly speaks Annalise's name. Meanwhile, Annalise herself is distracted from her reading. Her maid, Maria, points to a small potted tree bearing fruit that glows like a gem, exclaiming how mysterious it is. As they admire it, a man with glasses who has joined them identifies the plant, stating that its fruit is called as sunfruit. He explains that the fruit doesn't produce its own light. Rather, the oil in its skin reflects light, causing its shine to change with the viewing angle. He notes how rare it is for someone to analyze it rather than just admire it. Annalise quickly deduces that it must be nearly invisible at night, impressing the man with her insight. She then confirms his unspoken thought, stating calmly that she has used one before. She adds that its simplicity makes it easy for anyone to use. Her knowledge clearly impresses the man. He smiles, remarking that such fascinating encounters are rare. As he turns to depart, he expresses a hope that fate will allow them to meet again. He and his companion departed, their silhouettes fading into the city street. Meanwhile, Annalise recounted the encounter to her friend. The man was peculiar, she mused, and his sudden appearance was certainly suspicious. The two of them continued on their way, walking through the bustling commoners' district. Unseen, the man with glasses received a report from his associate. She confirmed that, just as the rumors claimed, Lady Annalise was no ordinary young lady. Her ideas and observations were exceptional. A slight smile touched the man's lips as he wondered what she was seeing in her mind's eye. He resolved that it was worth finding out. Inside the Baden residence, Lady Annalise sits with a troubled expression, touching her face. She confides in her maid, Maria, that her skin and lips have been feeling unusually dry lately. Maria asks what is wrong, and Annalise agrees with her concern, speculating that the dry wind coming from the mountains might be the cause. She closes her eyes in thought, realizing that she is not the only one affected by the arid air. A firm resolution forms in her mind. She truly needs cosmetics. With a burst of inspiration drawn from her past life's knowledge, Annalise declares her plan aloud. She tells Maria to help her, as they're going to make the cosmetics themselves. Sometime later, the sound of a rumbling carriage draws Annalise's attention to the window. Outside, EXILED is rushing towards the manor, calling her name, with a young man trailing behind him. He arrives breathlessly, apologizing for the sudden visit. He explains that while a formal written reply is forthcoming, he had received a request letter and blueprints from Maria and was so intrigued by her next creation that he had to come see for himself immediately. Mr. Edgardo then gestures to his companion, explaining that he brought an engineer with him. The young man confirms he has all the tools and materials, but suggests they should review the details before finalizing the lipstick case. He then introduces himself as Dominique. The engineer, Dominique, is immediately overwhelmed, covering his mouth in panic and exclaiming that he knew it. He isn't cut out for this. Annalise observes him, surprised by his youth and the fact that Mr. Edgardo brought an engineer at all. Annalise gently reassures the flustered young man. She explains that new inventions require a flexible mind and curiosity, and since he's about her age, he is the perfect person for the task. Taking his hands, she proposes they create something interesting together, leaving Dominique blushing and questioning if she truly means it. Annalise explains the core of her idea to Dominique, detailing the mechanism she wants. By twisting the bottom of a tube, an inner component will slowly extend, and twisting it the other way will retract it. As Dominique processes this, his eyes widening in comprehension, Annalise privately finds his earnest reaction endearing. He murmurs that he understands. It's a rotational mechanism to move the contents up and down within the tube. Pleased by his quick grasp of the concept, she praises him and insists he can speak informally with her in the room. A flustered Dominique offers his thanks. Nearby, EXILED expresses his amazement, assuming it must be a grand magic device, but Annalise clarifies that it is not. Her thoughts then shift to materials, wondering what to use for the case. She considers the transparent sap from a gel wood tree, which is harmless and can be heated and molded, reminding her of rubber or resin from her past life. As she mulls over the material possibilities, Nickel steps in. He informs Lady Annalise that he and Dominique will gather the necessary materials and tools. He then asks her to focus on what she intends to fill the case with, prompting a moment of silent contemplation from her. A few days later, Nickel discusses the project with an associate, remarking that one must act with passion on such ventures and noting that Dominique is progressing well. As his associate asks about a woman who is set to arrive, Annalise, elsewhere, has a sudden realization. She needs to cut a spiral mechanism for the device. The new arrival is a young woman named Tina, the daughter of a nearby village chief. She introduces herself, explaining that opportunities for women to work outside the home are scarce in her village. Believing that waiting would change nothing, she eagerly sought out this opportunity to try something new. Annalise smiles at Tina's determination, instructing her to learn the production process thoroughly so she can pass it on to the other women in her village. Tina enthusiastically agrees. Annalise's words of encouragement, telling Tina she is counting on her, cause the young woman to flush with nervous excitement. Later, in the workshop, Nickel notes that Tina seems more relaxed. Annalise agrees and decides it's time to begin. She presents a prototype of the case, filled with beeswax for testing, and invites Tina to try turning the handle. Holding the device, Tina vows to work hard and learn properly, despite her clumsiness, so she can teach the others. With her eyes sparkling in delight, Annalise inspects a newly crafted lipstick tube. She twists the mechanism, watching the stick of balm smoothly extend and retract, a perfect realization of her design. She turns to the young craftsman, Dominique, exclaiming that the container is perfect and thanking him profusely. A flustered Dominique is glad he could meet her expectations. With the container complete, Annalise announces that her next step is to create the contents. The process begins with distilling rose petals and water to produce rose essential oil and rose water. Separately, beeswax is melted with vegetable oil in a double boiler to create a base. A drop of the rose oil is added for scent, along with safflower dye for color, creating the lipstick. By adjusting the ingredient ratios, the same base can be turned into hand cream. As she works, her mother, Alma Baden, appears and asks if she might take a look. Surprised but pleased, Annalise confirms it is her and readily agrees. After some time, she holds up the finished product, declaring it a huge success. Twisting the tube, she confirms the texture is fine and, after a quick sniff, finds no strange smells. Still, she remains cautious, as this is the first time it will be used as a finished product. Her maids, including Tina, notice her hesitation and eagerly volunteer to test it for her. Annalise gently declines, insisting that as the creator, she must take responsibility and test it herself first. Her attention is suddenly drawn to the doorway, where she sees her mother has returned, this time with guests. Annalise calls out to her. Her mother, Alma, is accompanied by another noble woman, Lady Juliana. Alma proudly asks their guest if she would be willing to try the new creation her daughter has made. Lady Juliana, flattered by the honor, replies that she would be delighted to. Annalise agrees to apply it, as Lady Juliana compliments her, saying she is beautiful even without makeup. Annalise demurs that she is just a flatterer. The maid, Maria, steps forward to remove Lady Juliana's current makeup, and the noblewoman smiles, placing her trust in them. Lady Juliana touches her face in amazement, exclaiming how smooth her skin, hands, and lips feel. Annalise explains her philosophy. Instead of covering imperfections, one should first prepare the skin. She details the purpose of each product, one for the hands, which lose their glow easily, and an oil-based balm to protect the lips. Juliana listens, a look of understanding dawning on her face. Inspired by this, a group of other young women eagerly step forward, wanting to try the cosmetics for themselves and requesting some for their staff. They thank Annalise, but point out that the current supply won't be enough. Annalise then turns to a startled Tina, asking if she would be willing to try making the products herself using the method just demonstrated. She hesitates, but Annalise encourages her, explaining it's better to practice now so she won't struggle later. Promising to watch over her, Annalise's reassurance works. Tina's apprehension melts away, replaced by a determined smile as she agrees to the task. As the demonstration concludes, Lady Juliana approaches Annalise, congratulating her on a job well done. In the background, other noble ladies observe the scene with keen interest. Annalise watches her with a satisfied smile, noting internally that Lady Juliana, a leading authority on beauty, genuinely loves the cosmetics. She gives a subtle wink, confident in her plan. Beside her, Maria correctly deduces that this was all part of Annalise's plan. Annalise gives a small, knowing smile, admitting she was already thinking about making more and is certain Juliana will spread the word. Just then, her mother, Alma Baden, approaches, her face beaming with pride and admiration for what her daughter has accomplished. She calls out to Lady Annalise, causing Annalise to turn in surprise, flanked by her maid Maria and the newly recruited Tina. The group, now including Dominique, stands together as the noble women, led by Alma and Juliana, chat happily. Watching from a slight distance, young Lily Baden looks at her mother with wide-eyed wonder, thinking to herself how amazing she is. In a meeting with Annalise and Lord Elias, Nickel Legardo reviews the initial success of their new venture, basic skincare products. He reports that the existing high-end products were a hit with the nobility, while lower-priced versions using familiar medicinal herbs were well received by the commoners. The response exceeded all expectations. However, Annalise notes a critical issue. Production simply cannot keep up with the overwhelming demand, a problem personified by frantic Tina struggling to manage the workload. In response to the production bottleneck, Annalise declares a far grander vision. She asserts that they will not allow cosmetics to remain a passing trend. Instead, she intends to transform it into a national industry. The bold proclamation catches Nickel by surprise. She elaborates on her plan, gesturing toward a map of the Duchy of Delisland. From there, she explains they will begin to export their cosmetics to neighboring countries. An official with glasses analyzes the proposal, noting that the target countries both have large populations, which would guarantee high demand. The potential is so great, he exclaims, export. He continues, explaining to Nickel that if they can spark a trend abroad, it could bring in significant foreign revenue. The idea resonates deeply. Their country is small and relies heavily on imports. Building a new industry centered on cosmetics would create jobs and stabilize the national income. As this realization dawns, Annalise's eyes light up with inspiration. Seeing her expression, Nickel agrees, stating that this is exactly what they need. Dominique then steps forward to address the logistics. He volunteers his trading company to handle domestic distribution and states they would need Lord Elias's support for negotiations with other countries. Turning to Annalise, he summarizes the situation. They need someone to handle both distribution and negotiations. Hearing this, Nickel Edgardo smiles with unwavering confidence and replies, "Of course." With the final piece of the puzzle in place, Annalise feels a wave of relief. The cosmetics issue appears to be settled. Yet a single lingering thought remains, but in a room within the Baden estate, Annalise, wearing a protective apron over her formal dress, stands before a large, unfamiliar white cabinet with a wooden base. Her business partners, Lord Elias and his associate, stare in astonishment at the scene before them, with the prince demanding to know what he is seeing. Annalise, standing with a confident Nickel and Dominique, confirms to them that the manufacturing method for her new lotion is now perfect. She recalls her primary concern. The scent and oil content of the cosmetics change over time. For mass production and long-distance shipping, preservation would be a far greater challenge than manufacturing. She had pondered how best to store the finished products. The solution had become clear to her. The key was maintaining a stable temperature. With a flourish, she presents the cabinet, announcing it as the famous refrigerator. She explains it is a magic tool for preservation, made from magic stones. Her audience, however, is merely confused, with Lord Elias asking what the box is and the others muttering the strange new word. Smiling with the satisfaction of someone holding a secret, she opens the door, revealing an interior filled with perfectly preserved meats and produce, chilled by a glowing magic stone set in the back wall. She invites them to take a look inside. Lord Elias reaches in, remarking on the intense cold. Annalise proudly states that the contents have been inside for a week and remain perfect. At this revelation, Nickel and Dominique cry out in utter disbelief. He inspects a string of sausages, confirming they haven't gone bad and calling the preservation remarkable. He reflects that until now, their only options were storage sheds or expensive spices, as room temperature was the limit for keeping things fresh. His associate agrees, but Lord Elias's expression turns serious. He looks off, contemplating the future. Yes, he begins, but if this tool spreads, his voice trails off, lost in thought about the monumental changes such an invention would bring to the world. Inside a workshop, Nickel Edgardo gestures excitedly, asking who managed to turn the cosmetic box concept into a full-fledged magic artifact. Dominique smiles, replying that it was someone just like Annalise. She, in turn, humbly states that simply coming up with the initial idea was impressive enough on its own. Dominique reassures them that it won't be an issue. Seizing the commercial potential, Nickel proposes that if they establish mass production, they can sell the item both domestically and overseas. As she listens, Annalise has a sudden realization. His enthusiasm unabated, Nickel turns to Annalise and raises a finger, announcing that there is, in fact, another special model. With a dramatic flourish, a magnificent, ornate case is revealed. It is a special design intended for royalty and high-ranking nobles, perfect for large parties and enchanted with unlimited storage capacity. Annalise stares, completely astonished. Sometime later, Annalise sits on a park bench, sighing with relief as she finally gets a moment to eat her lunch. Beside her, Tina remarks cheerfully that Mr. Edgardo was so fired up that he ended up taking Annalise's entire lunch break. As she rests, a man with glasses walks nearby with a female companion. He mentions having heard rumors about Annalise, his eyes catching sight of her on the bench just as he speaks. The man approaches with a warm smile, pleased that she seems to remember him. Annalise looks up, her eyes widening in recognition as she identifies him as the traveler she met before. He apologizes for interrupting and sits beside her. He brings up the rumors spreading through town about a famous inventor, remarking that he never expected the person he once spoke with about plants would achieve such renown. Annalise considers his words for a moment. With a thoughtful expression, she replies that she is simply getting help from the people around her. Her quiet reflection was suddenly interrupted. Looking up, she saw a man standing before her, his presence commanding attention. He was a handsome young nobleman with dark hair and a serious expression, dressed impeccably in a light-colored suit. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, and she uttered his name in disbelief. "Oh, Lord Albert." In the quiet garden, the man with glasses smiles wryly at Annalise, who sits on a bench. He admits his attempt to flirt was not the smoothest, which flusters her as she hadn't even registered it as flirting. He concedes that his approach was simply rude. From a short distance, Lord Elias observes the interaction. Before the conversation can continue, Lord Elias steps in, taking Annalise by the hand and leading her into a dance-like turn. He announces that their break is over and it is time to go, leaving a surprised Annalise to be whisked away as the other man waves a simple farewell. As they walk, she begins to question him about the man, but Elias hesitates. Annalise clarifies that she doesn't actually know the man at all, prompting a thoughtful silence from Elias. He stops, a faint blush dusting his cheeks as he touches his neck. With a serious expression, he confesses that seeing other men get too close to her is something he does not like. His unexpected words cause Annalise to blush deeply. Seeing her reaction, Elias quickly adds that since she can be a bit clumsy, he will simply keep holding her hand. Flustered, she can only stammer as he leads her away, their hands now firmly clasped. The sensation of his hand holding hers makes her heart race. Looking down at their joined hands, Annalise is lost in confusion, wondering what his actions and his confession truly mean.